Monday is the time to go back and reflect. The Jets and Bills, I'm not going to say too much about these teams, but obviously the Jets stink. They're horrible. And if you're going to name the bottom 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 teams in the league, they are definitely one of them and maybe the worst, but I don't think they're the worst. I think the worst is, I'll talk about it in a little while. But they are definitely one of the bottom 5 or 6 teams in the league. Both of these teams looked in the offseason to be setting up for draft picks for next year. So I don't really take too much out of what happened yesterday, because when you play a team like the Jets, you're supposed to win. And they won by 9. The line closed 7, opened 6, 7. It did go under. As I said, most of the games did go under yesterday. So the Bills have more weapons and better coaching staff, in my opinion. And they will make some noise this year. They have enough to surprise some teams. They're not going very far. They might win maybe 4 to 6 games at the most. I mean, they could beat the Jets twice and they could beat Miami twice. It's possible. I don't see that happening, but it is possible. And I doubt that they'll handle the Patriots. And that's 6 of their games right there. And then, of course, they got to struggle through against some non-division and non-conference teams as well. I don't expect them to be there at the end, but these are the kind of teams, and I have to tell you, you're not going to make a lot of money betting on the teams you expect to be good. The reason is, of course, it's just like horse racing. When you're good, they put more weight on you, slow you down. Well, the weight in football is called the point spread. A lot of times with teams like this, you're going to get a couple extra points because they are bad, and the teams they're playing are good, and the odds makers will take points away from the bad and give them to the good. So you're laying 1 or 2, maybe sometimes 2.5 or 3 points extra on those good teams, and the value at times goes with these underdogs. So I'd be looking to bet on these teams when they're getting significant numbers. More on the Bills than the Jets, because I don't see them doing much, but that's kind of the way I'm thinking about it. Now, Atlanta finally won a game. They went to the Bears. Since the halftime lead of 28-3 against New England, one of the most unbelievable third and fourth quarters I've ever seen. We all saw that, so I don't need to talk too much about it, but they didn't really do very well opening this season either. So the Super Bowl loser hangover was weighing on them. And one of my plays yesterday was the Bears, and I did take as much 7s and 6.5s as I could get. It paid off. It was close. But if Glennon actually, I've always thought Glennon was a pretty decent quarterback and had not gotten a chance. But I felt that about other guys too, and I've been wrong. But if he had any wide receivers that could catch, those guys couldn't catch a cold yesterday. They could have beaten Atlanta. So Atlanta was not impressive, in my opinion. They won by 6 on the road. It's always tough to win on the road, but the Bears could have beaten them. So now we go to this week, and I'll look a little bit ahead to these games because it's important that we do that. Let's see. Atlanta, oh boy, they got themselves a real trip here. They're going to have to face Aaron Rodgers and the Green Bay Packers, who just hammered Seattle. We'll talk about Seattle a little later. There's a lot to talk about them. But Aaron Rodgers is the best quarterback in the league. There's nobody even close to that. I know Brady's got all the trophies and all that, but when it comes to out talent, I mean, just can do it by yourself with his legs, with his arms, and his age factored in too, because you can't take anything away from Brady, but Aaron Rodgers is unbelievable. My second guy would be Russell Wilson, and we'll get into that later. But I'm talking about guys that can win games without all the support and those guys can do it. Anyway, so that's Atlanta at home this week. I'm going to do a little bit of this and mix them together. I wasn't impressed with Atlanta's victory at Chicago. I thought Chicago could have beaten them. And I'm talking about straight up because we did collect the money with the dog. They go this week on the road. 54 is the total against Atlanta. That's Green Bay, Atlanta. And Atlanta's 3, and I'm seeing 2.5s. One book opened at 2, but they went up to 2.5. So what we have here is a combining of forces, 3s and 2s that are meeting at 2.5. And I think that's going to be the trend. You might see a little bit of under money, which is going to be hard to justify because these teams are very explosive and they should be able to score a lot. But what's going to weigh on that is the fact that the unders dominated yesterday. So that won't carry over necessarily because we have to go back to the collective bargaining agreement that was negotiated a few years ago that said players will only have so many hits, so many minutes on the field, so many plays, so many days off, and all that bullshit. It doesn't prepare these teams for the regular season. What it tries to do is minimize injuries. And it probably does. If you're not getting hit, you're not going to get hurt as much. Okay, I'll go with that. But it doesn't prepare these teams to be at their peak at the beginning of the year. So you see some kind of bad football out there. And some of these teams just weren't ready to start the season. But they will be more ready as we go along, providing they stay reasonably healthy. So I think the scores are going to start to go up. You're not going to see these numbers move in this direction. This is a reaction to last week, so keep that in mind with this. I think if this game showed up at about maybe 52 or something, anything less than 53, I'd be betting it over. But right now it's sitting at 53.5. 2.5 or 3 is the number. Next game, Jacksonville went up against Captain Hook, which is my name for the head coach at Houston, and Tom Savage, who got pulled at halftime. He pulled the same BS a couple years ago with Hoyer and Mallett, and he did it yesterday. This is not a guy that should be a head coach making executive decisions in the NFL. I'm sorry, guys. It's a bad division with bad teams, and he's a bad coach. And that was a bonehead move because what it does is it tells everybody on your team that what he says doesn't matter. He doesn't stick to his word. He did it 2 years ago. I don't know why some of these guys have jobs. But anyway, Jacksonville looked pretty good. They got 10 sacks. They're calling him Saxonville now because, I mean, if they can do that going forward, they're going to be rough because they do run the ball. They do play defense. And if they can overcome Bortles making mistakes, which he did not do yesterday, they can win some games. And they jumped to the head of the class after what we saw yesterday with a marginal point of view is that they played a very poorly coached Houston team who had gone through hell this last week or so with the hurricane. So we're going to put that on the shelf and make decisions about those guys a little bit later down the road after a couple more games. But Jacksonville opens at home against Tennessee this week, who also lost to Oakland. I was not impressed with Tennessee. Okay, you can criticize the head coach for Tennessee opening with an onside kick, first play of the game. Didn't work out. Gave a touch, good field position to Oakland. They scored. They were playing from behind the whole way. Not impressed, but it is what it is, and we take chances, and we sometimes are right, and sometimes we're wrong. But they only scored 16 points against last year's very poor defense. That's not impressive. I haven't really been impressed with the Tennessee offense for a long time. And their quarterback has not shown me a lot. He's okay. I'm not saying that, there's a lot of okay quarterbacks in the NFL. One that's probably a little bit better than okay is Kaepernick, and he doesn't have a team. But this is another one of those teams that don't make quick decisions on them, because teams will change a lot from week 1 to week 2 to week 3. We saw that in college over the weekend. You look what Stanford did to Rice, and then they got eaten alive by USC. Eaten alive. That game was not even as close as the final score. I watched every play, and they were not even close in that game. So anyway, we're moving on. We'll go to the next game. As I said, Tennessee is at Jacksonville. Jacksonville got hit with this hurricane. There's a lot of rain up there, a lot of damage, a lot to go through between now and Sunday. Not sure how that's going to work out, but that's a weatherman issue. So anyway, the game is pick'em, which means the odds makers are saying that there isn't much of a home field advantage to Jacksonville at all, and Tennessee's the better team, at least power rating wise. Couple offshore books have Tennessee 1.5, and that is interesting. You got a team coming off a loss at home, a team coming off a victory on the road, and they're favoring the road team that lost. There's no real reason to do that. You start the season out, show me what you can do on the field and not what your press clippings say you should be able to do. Right now, I'm not saying that's the right number. I'm saying it's the wrong number. I'm not saying I'm going to bet it, but that's where I'm leaning right now. Philadelphia looked very impressive, beating Washington. Washington, of course, has their issues. And that game was 30-17. I was rather impressed. Everybody's kind of impressed with the Eagles. Their off-season moves. And I don't think anybody's impressed with what Washington has done recently with their contracts and their additions and the trades and all that. This is a team that looks to be in trouble. Washington heads down to Rams, or out to the Rams, who had the biggest margin of victory against Indianapolis, which is absolutely a shit show. Pagano sounds like Jeff Fisher. And this guy, now granted, you can make mistakes, especially when you're under pressure and it's emotional, but he forgot that he played the Rams and thought he played the 49ers because he gave credit to the 49ers for beating them. But be that as it may, that's a simple word game. What's really important there is he has failed to build a team, and you can blame ownership, you can blame his general manager, et cetera, but this guy, and I know that's part of the poll question, who should be fired first, and this guy's right at the top. He's 1 or 2 to go. We'll get to the other guy in a minute. But anyway, Rams opened up 2 or 3, and it's sitting at 2.5, right in between those numbers. Total's 46. Rams showed a lot of moxie yesterday, but they did play the Colts, who, based on performance, the Colts are the worst team in football. Scott Tolzien probably shouldn't even be a backup, or even maybe a third string in the NFL. He should not be starting. Brissett will probably start. He's the guy they traded for out of New England. He's definitely better. He needs some reps. He needs some time, but he's definitely better. Indianapolis they open at home against Arizona. Arizona has some injury issues that we have to worry about with Johnson, the running back, hurt his hand. Indianapolis, without Luck, nobody has told the truth about Andrew Luck all year about what his condition is, but I would suspect we're going to see Brissett starting. I don't think you're going to see Tolzien again. And Arizona opened 7. They're up to 7.5. The total is 44.5. Boy, the thing that I think about this is that, just think about this. You got a powerful team in Arizona who just blew a game up in Detroit, and I'm glad they did because I had a double winner with Detroit and the over. But Arizona has a lot of talent. Indianapolis does not. Arizona's coming off a loss. They do have the injury to Johnson, who is, I don't know what his status is yet. It's still only Monday morning. If he's out, I can understand some conservative thoughts here with this. I see a teaser line at one place. What teaser line is, they don't want you to tease it down by 6 or 7 to lower than 3. So right now there's 7.5s everywhere except one place and has it 9. A total of 44.5. I got to ask a question. Who's going to get the 44 points? Where is it going to come from? Where is that going to come from? The Colts don't have an offense. So is Arizona going to get all the points? And if they do, then the favorite has to be the side to bet. I'm telling you, this is Monday morning, so my brain is telling you exactly how I go through the process. Now I'll go through all the stats. I'm going to be reading all the recaps and the injuries and everything else. But I would say this to you. Carson Palmer played a terrible game. But he's no worse than Scott Tolzien, and we have no idea what Brissett will do except that he can move the chains with his legs. Big guy, talented. I would say if you can lay 7 right now, if you can get some sleepy guy out there, then you can lay 7. I would do that. Because there's no way this game is not going up. If anything, it has to go up. The worst it could be is it could stay right there. But it has to go up based on what you can project these two teams can do on the field scoring points. Arizona could get you 30, 35. I don't see the Colts getting any more than maximum 14. Unless it's done with turnovers and their defense isn't really that good. So I don't see that happening. Oakland went to Tennessee. We talked about this a little earlier when we talked about Tennessee. Oakland is everybody's, not everybody's, but a lot of people think they're going to be in the championship game in the AFC. I still question their defense, although I have to say they played decently yesterday against Tennessee. But like I said also, I don't rank Tennessee's offense as high as a lot of people. So I'm not going to go crazy with this and say, Oakland shut down a real good offense. I don't think they really did. I don't think Tennessee's that explosive. Mariota doesn't impress me that much. So it remains to be seen. Now this week, Oakland gets to play the punching bag of the league, or one of the punching bags in this league, and there are a number of them. This is not a strong league anymore. They're laying 13.5 or 14, and that number has moved to a very strong 13.5, except at that one book that likes to put up teaser numbers. And what I mean by that, they made it 15. So if you teased it, you'd be down laying 9 or taking 21 if you use the 6-point teaser on that game. Of course, you have to combine it with one or two other teams or several teams. So other books have it at 13.5 would lower it down to 7.5. And, that's not the greatest teaser protection move I've ever seen with the up to 15. So if you want the Jets, that one place will give you 15. I'm not going to bet the Jets. That's a cross-country trip. Jets coming off a division loss. They don't have a lot of talent. Their quarterback is decent. Better than a lot of quarterbacks in the league. Definitely has experience. But Oakland is this is their home opener, although their home, there's a lot of things to think about here. Oakland, they're leaving the city and they're coming to Vegas in 2 years. So they might not get the same kind of support that they used to get. But that's an interesting game coming off of yesterday. Now, we already covered what they did yesterday. So Tampa and Miami did not play because of the storm, rightfully so. They could have gotten a lot of people hurt if they tried to play that game or went to see the game. So that was a good decision.